Housing market trends, both Wichita local and national. I'm going to go over a bunch of data, a bunch of nerdy facts and stats. But before we get into all that, let's go ahead and like, comment, subscribe. Please share this with anybody you think would be worthwhile. I'd also love to hear your feedback in the comment section below, or shoot me a message and let me know your thoughts on everything you're seeing here and all that. So it really helps a small business owner like myself, who is very invested in the Wichita community, to get going, put my name out there, help circulate the economy, and really help out in times of need when things are tough on everything. So, all right, let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and just start looking at the data so that you don't have to look at my face. So first, I'm going to go local first and then national second. So let me get this out of the way. So this is our local MLS reports that you're looking at here. And it's interesting to note how much of a roller coaster ride it's been this year. So this is the closed listings by month. And at any point you're watching through this, go ahead and like pause or hold the screen to look at the data more in depth. I'm going to run all through all this really fast, but if you want either of these reports, let me know. I'm just going to give you a brief summary, too long didn't read type of a situation. So as you've seen, number of sales has been very volatile this year, as it kind of was last year in 2022. And 2021 has been about the only year that didn't really like follow the normal bell curve like we're seeing, where normally it follows a bell curve from the end of winter, into the spring, into the summer, and then into fall and winter, it starts to trail off on everything. So if you're a seller, this is what you need to look at. If you're looking at selling this year, it's really a good idea to be getting your home on the market and being prepped for that before the selling season is over. Because I know it's August and November and December don't seem that far away, but they'll be here before you know it on everything. Because as you see, people just tend to not buy houses. It just drops off and off and off here. And then January, February is when a lot of the buyers start to come back around. But then the sellers aren't quite there yet because they don't want to move because it's cold yet still. And March, usually around St. Patrick's Day, is when sellers really start to come to the market. Buyers start buying those houses that the sellers are putting in the market, and this thing really turns over. So whether you are looking to sell this year and want to still accomplish that, or you're looking to plan for next year, let's talk and connect, because that way we can set you up for a solid strategy and game plan to launch these listings well. Because that's what we've seen works really well, is you launch a listing right and it sells quickly and promptly. It doesn't, then it doesn't sell. And I'll get into this a little bit later, but what is very misunderstood is how many people just stay in their houses if they don't sell. They don't have to drop them. They don't have to sell them. They're in a very financially stable situation. I'll show you how many of them have their house paid off, or also can afford the payment where it's at. So if they can't get the house sold for what they want, they just stay. Like, that's not the end of the world. And so there's this underlying assumption that people think home prices are going to drop, but that's not the case. People just don't sell, they stay, and the market stagnates is what happens, is what is happening. So I kind of just gave away everything in this video up front for those of you who can't pay attention and watch long enough. So let's go ahead and get into the rest of it. Another thing to note here is, like, the majority of our home sales happen in this $200,000 to $400,000 price range. If you look at 16%, 12%, 17%, then once you get above 400,000, it gets pretty slim pickings at 5%, and then above 500,000 is 5%, and then the higher end markets is like 1.5% of the entire market. Just to give you an idea of perspective on a market, whether you're from here or you're not, gives you an idea of the numbers. Again, tap, hold, look at these numbers, know the data, because the biggest one that I see is very misleading too, is this days on market, whether you look at the average or the median. So to give you an insight on how median works, median is the middle, average is if you take all of them and divide them by how many there are to give you the average. So which one is more accurate? I'd probably say the average to go off of, just because the number is typically higher, and I'd rather prepare people to have a 2 to 3 week to a month long listing period before it sells than promise them it's going to sell in the first day or 3 to 5 days, because that's more realistic. We're going to prepare for it and launch for a 3 to 5 day window. But if that doesn't happen, be prepared to list this thing for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with it. That's just where the market's at on everything. So, obviously this is from a umbrella perspective of Wichita. I'm going to talk about national trends too, but what really matters is your city, your neighborhood, and your house. If you want to get that granular, that focused, obviously that's where the expertise of a good market expert like myself comes in. But in all reality, this is just helping answer the question that so many people ask me, how's the market? Here's how the market is. This will give you an idea. At the end of the day, it kind of matters to you, but more importantly, what matters is where's your specific house and neighborhood at. And if you want that too, I have buttons for that on my website. I have emails for that you can sign up for, or I can manually pull them and send to you. Just trying to be of help and of service and of value to you for what you're aiming to do here with your real estate needs. So that gives you some perspective on the closed listings by price range still. Average price. So this is also holding very strong in Wichita. Our average price is $255 for July. You know, you'd have to look at what the full total average is, but this at least give you an idea of where, you know, Wichita is now kind of a $250,000 house city, is to give you like a perspective or idea of it, of where we're at. You know, if you're comparing us to any other major city, you know, because we are one of the top 50 cities in the US. So we are a big city, even though we have a small town feel and we kind of try to act like that. It is important to note our price point though, for the size of city we have, and why we see a lot of people moving from major markets, major metropolitan areas to smaller, more affordable markets like ours in Wichita, because you can make it, especially working remote and everything that went on with the pandemic and just modern day living, cost of living. People are migrating towards more affordable housing markets like ours. So there's that to note as well. And that's partially why our home prices are rising. It's also partially because we're making more money than ever, is the truth. You know, I know prices of things are going up, cost of things are going up, but so is your income. If you really take that into account, when you look at the trends of it all across the board, things are costing more, but people are making more. So you have to look at all of that in conjunction with it all. And knowing Wichita, we're pretty smart, safe, conservative type of values. And typically people aren't overextending themselves for the house, especially with how much house you can get in Wichita. It is awesome how much house you can get here. You know, that's why I still live here. That's why I run a business here, but I travel a lot from here, but then it's really a great place to live in and work, and really take in those values that really matter and are important. So let's move on. Closed listings analysis. Again, you kind of see over the winter, takes a lot longer to sell a house. It kind of follows an inverse bell curve over the summer of how long it takes to sell a house. You can see in 2022 here in June, how low did that sucker get? Got to 11 days on market there in June, which is pretty impressive from an average days on market standpoint, because that's usually the highest one, the longest one. So you can see last year in June, houses were even more so flying off the market. But this is still following kind of the same perspective on everything, just to give you the right data if you're looking to sell your home or buy a home, how long's homes stay on the market type of thing. Median days on market, I'm not the biggest fan of. But you can really see here by history of active listings, when we say inventory is going down, we have less homes to sell, we mean it. And we're having to come up with a lot more creative options and solutions on everything, like what we call shadow inventory, selling houses off market, for sale by owners, you know, other different creative way, wholesalers, you know, all these other options for selling your home besides just listing it traditionally. And then also as a realtor, we got to go above and beyond to find and navigate these ways to have deals happen beyond just looking on the MLS on things. So the value of an agent is definitely still there. It's just more complicated, more complex, more difficult, harder than ever. But that's where I see the professionals that are really experts of their craft and passionate about doing this the best way possible are loving this. And the ones who are kind of just trying to sit around and collect a paycheck are getting crushed or getting out of the business. So there's that. Active listings by month is increasing. So we have seen the most amount of active listings this year. So the number of inventory for us is going up compared to previous years of everything. But obviously we know that's very affected by interest rates, because interest rates are double what they are last year. They're up, I think, like 150%, which is wild. So the cost of money is way up. So people can't afford as much of a house. And so even though the home prices are trying to go up higher, people can't buy as much up there. So the number of home sales is greatly decreasing. Average price, median price, you know, and this gives you an idea too. A great example of how just because people put the house on the market for XYZ doesn't mean it sells. A lot of what happens that I can show you the data and the stats of it, I'd have to go pull a full another report out of MLS, shows you how many listings don't sell and people just stay there. This is the biggest misunderstanding that people have that kind of drives me bonkers or misleads people, is that if somebody's house doesn't sell or they're not getting the price they want for it, it doesn't mean they have to drop the price. It just means they stay there. It just means they couldn't get their house sold at that time. There wasn't a buyer and they just stay. And a lot of what happens, like I have 2 listings coming up here, that it's like, if we can't get the price we want right now and before the winter hits, we'll just take off the market and try again in the spring, because there'll be a whole nother round of buyers then. And it's not that those people failed, or it's not that I failed. It's just that at that time, there wasn't a buyer for that house at that price point for that market. And those people will just stay there because they don't have to sell, but they want to. And so that's a big misleading stat of what goes on in our market or in our industry, that people are not forced to lower their houses, forced to sell like on anything. If you put yourself in a strategically strong financial position, like a lot of people have after 08, and just understanding where you should be at more. And if you have a good realtor who sets you up for that long term, they just stay. It's not the end of the world. Like, can't sell your house. You just stay where you're at. So what else is there to note on here without boring you guys too much? Inventory is starting to go up, so that's good. There's more options. Pull more things off, like contingent offers or closing costs or some things like that. Let's see if there's anything else worth noting on here. Don't really think so at this point. Yeah, nothing else to go over locally, really. So let's get into some of the national trends on everything. So this is a service that I subscribe to, Keeping Current Matters, and I'm helping you make sense of the data and the insights that everybody's looking at. National economists, national experts, some things I agree with, some things I don't. Obviously, this helps give you my perspective from the front lines, from actually working in the field with these people. But at the same time, I am just one agent, so it's a happy combination of what's going on the front line, but then also what are the national experts saying and locally, to help you try to make sense of this craziness that we're all living in for everything. So, and definitely in times of uncertainty, just like in COVID, leaders stepped up and people went to certain things. That's why they bought real estate, because real estate is so certain compared to any other investment, and they were allowed to, and the prices were so, the price of money was so cheap, they're allowed to go buy homes and drive the price up. So that's why the housing market had such a boom in that uncertain time, because it's allowed. Now we're facing a different type of uncertainty, which is higher interest rates, the economy, and what's really going to go on. And really, at the end of the day, you got to look at data, facts, figures, not so much rumor, popular opinion, headlines. Headlines are some of the worst, honestly, about this, which is what we're getting into here, is consumer confidence and home prices weakened toward the end of 22. It's kind of concerning how many people are misled, misunderstand how home prices work, how the economy works, how real estate works. And that's why we're really trying to fight that battle of really informing people how things truly work, because a lot of them are getting misled by headlines like this. This was from December 2022 that they said there's going to be a decline. How many years in a row have you heard house prices are going to decline, the housing market's going to crash, and yet it doesn't, and they're still getting it wrong, and they're coming up with the brand new flavor or reason of why it's going to crash, and then it doesn't? That should really give you some insight into how much these people know what they're talking about, and how much they're just selling fear and selling propaganda to get you to click on something, to believe something, and their agenda behind all of that. So just keep all that in mind when you're really looking at this and deciding who to believe and what to believe on everything, myself included. Question everything. So consumer confidence, this just gives you an idea, percentage who will believe home prices will go down in the next 12 months. It's really picked up a lot this year. How many people are talking about a repeat of 2008 crash? Just because we're in a recession, the economy is kind of hurting, interest rates are high, things are getting tougher. We're kind of having what I would call a great reset of everything, because we were all drunk for the last 2 years on interest rates. And now it's kind of like we're sobering up, we're hungover, and we're kind of having to have a reset of what's normal and what's appropriate on everything. And And so this kind of gives you an idea of where, because we had a crash before, not that long ago, people are hyping it up, squawking about it. But honestly, what I'm concerned about is that if people really believe this stuff and they believe this immense information and they really act on it, there could be potential problems that if you have that many people believing and acting on things that are untrue. And it just shows you how powerful that those propaganda machines are to, affect mass human behavior on everything. So if you have this many people that think it'll depreciate and it doesn't, like, you're going to have a lot of people acting out of line with where reality's at on everything, thinking they can go lowball offers, thinking they can go steal deals, thinking foreclosures are going to happen. Like, it's very predatory when you really think about it. There's a lot of consumers who are ready to be predators, thinking the housing market's going to crash. And it's honestly kind of sad, but that's what it is. So facts shatter fear. People would panic and put their home on the market if that's the case. What we've seen is new listings were expected to skyrocket in May of 2022, but what action is they followed a normal bell curve. In all reality, this is how it should be. This is normal real estate. This is how it's been going on forever. People also thought that the recession and the end of moratorium meant a tsunami of foreclosures. As you can see, they have gone up, but they're nowhere near 08 levels and everything that went on there. And honestly, there's way too many modern solutions for things to get to foreclosure, whether that's reconsolidating with your bank, just putting on the market, listing it, selling it to an investor. There's way too many options and methods and ways to contact people, ways to get to them before it gets to foreclosure. Foreclosure is such a long process and honestly not good for the economy, not good for the bank, not good for anybody except for those few selfish individuals who want to try to take advantage of that situation and handle on that. There is, ways that we can solve things way ahead of time before we ever have to get to the foreclosure process. If it gets to foreclosure, it's just honestly gross negligence on a lot of people's parts on everything. Serious delinquencies are on a decline. So like I said, banks are starting to get things out. Lenders are starting to get things figured out. So not going to be a foreclosure activity. What else can we look at here? That's not going to bore you or be relevant. Home prices are going up, as you see here. This is probably the best, graph for showing you where home prices went. So late last year, they did kind of decline slightly, but now they're back on the rise and things are looking to, get stabilized again and go up again. If you really wanted to see where the top percentage appreciation in top 20 cities are on everything, this will give you an idea, tap and hold. What else do we got? So this is a key one to note. Deceleration of appreciation is not the same thing as home prices are depreciating, meaning they're still going up. They're just not going up as fast. So instead of going up at 18% and 11% they were before, they're going up at 5%. So it's kind of like it slowed down, but it didn't stop and it didn't go backwards, which is a common thought that people have, is that they tend to think in extremes and they think, well, if it's not one way, it's completely the other way. Inventory is still historically low, as you can see. Simply not enough homes for sale, and the market could easily absorb a doubling inventory. There's definitely people who still want to buy and sell. I'm gonna scream about this statement because this dude, whoever this was from the mortgage reports, see, again, this is why you can't just take all data and facts blindly on everything. The seller's market, sellers often think that they don't need an agent because anyone can sell a house during a favorable period. However, it is important to remember that agents don't sell houses, rather they facilitate, consult, and protect their clients throughout the process. BS, agents absolutely do sell houses. If it wasn't for our marketing activity, digital ads, conversations, sales processes, and everything we do that actually triggers a sale, houses wouldn't get sold. Houses don't go put themselves on MLS or Zillow or all that. And through a lot of the for sale owners I meet and people that I meet are starting to come to realize that this game is way harder than just throw on the MLS, way harder than just throw it on for sale owner or Zillow or somewhere like that, and it just sells. If you don't know how to navigate the digital marketing online experience of this, you're toast. And the dirty trick of Zillow is you think you can just throw it on there and it'll just sell. But what many for sub owners and sellers are coming to find out, that's not the case. And when it is time to kick it over to a realtor, you really want to be looking at a realtor who does more than just puts on the MLS and lets it sit there. Because honestly, sadly, that is a lot of realtor strategy. And if they charge a lower rate or a flat fee for that, good, they probably should, because they're at least charging what they're worth. And they're not really doing a service to the community, to their clients, to realtors as a whole. And it's really not a solid option for getting the home sold net most money on everything. You really need a digital marketing and sales expert to get a home sold anymore. And that's who ultimately gets homes sold. Homes don't sell themselves. People don't do things by themselves. They need a guiding force, a service, somebody that facilitates all that. He's right on that part, but you can't undermine the fact of what an agent does in this equation to actually get things done, to actually make things happen, especially with how much people work goes into moving people through this process, through the transaction of listing the home, buying a home, everything goes with that. And that absolutely requires a human. Humans still need humans. We can't AI and automate everything that goes on with this, even in a seller's market, even in a favorable situation. Just make sure you're looking at the services and the offerings that your agent gives you, because not all agents are created equal or charge equal on everything. And there's some of us like myself who are out there on a mission to provide a better service experience for realtors or for the consumer that realtors and agents are providing, that is in a whole nother class in and of itself. Like, it's night and day difference on everything. So anyway, there's my thoughts on that. Don't necessarily read and believe everything you see on here, but it is good to look at the data and the drama and the facts, not just the hearsay. This one I'm probably excited about. We'll see if it happens. If rates get below 6%, we're having a heyday on everything. And honestly, I could see this happening where we have houses that are selling the end of the year. People are kind of looking to get their things done this year, and they kind of put some of these things on the back burner, but demand isn't really quite there completely like it will be in the spring. So especially if rates drop and demand is still there, we're going to have an explosion next year of 2024. And honestly, and what'll happen a lot too is there'll be less realtors, because a lot of realtors are getting out of the industry. A lot of realtors are quitting. They can't make it, whatever the case may be. For those that are still in business, still around, I think it'll be an onslaught of trying to keep up with everything. So there's some of my predictions, if you will. We'll see how it happens. I don't really try to make many predictions because I kind of take things as they go with it all. But anyway, if you really study interest rates and the economy, it has to go with inflation. The historical perspective on some things, just depends on how much you want to nerd out, geek out on this stuff. Mortgage rates tend to track government bonds inflation with a lag, gives you an idea. So if you kind of pay attention to those indicators, it'll give you an idea what's going on. And talking to homeowners makes a difference, because, we're honestly in the front lines, in the trenches, not dealing with like your friend, your brother, who is an expert based on no data on anything, just based on hearsay, or he's reading headlines, and if you're reading headlines, like, you're going to think you're some prophet that's going to talk about things crashing. But it's like Robert Kiyosaki is probably one of the worst ones that continues to talk about a crash so that you will buy his products, so you will buy his courses. Same thing with like Dave Ramsey and some of those that sell fear. It's like, you really got to be looking at what people are selling you and what their objective is. They want to scare you into buying their course, buying their product, buying their coaching, so that they can basically make money from you on that. And we all know, now may not all know this, but if you know psychology, humans are more motivated by pain and losing something than they are by pleasure and gaining something. So that's why they use those methods in order to try to sell fear, instill fear, to motivate you to buy their products or take action or do things. So little insider secret as far as the psychology of marketing and sales go with that. So anyway, that's all I got on the market data for Wichita local and national. And I hope that helps you. Watch some of my other videos if you want to get to know Wichita, real estate, anything of the above. Follow my links below to check out my website, get in contact with me, and hope this helped you learn a little bit more how the current real estate market really is, everything that goes on with it. Shoot me a message if you want to talk, and we'll go from there. See ya.